How you doing, everybody? Chris Reinvented here with the Vancouver Film School Storyteller Studio podcast. Today is an extra special episode because I've got one of my all-time great favorite comedians. He's actually a Vancouver guy, 3-time winner of Canadian Comedy Award, host of Maximum Fun's podcast, Stop Podcasting Yourself. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
I did it all in one take. They call me One Take Bennett. That's
that
how
was
I do
great.
It. I'm sitting here with the one and only comedian extraordinaire, Mr. Graham Clark. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
I've seen you perform for years at all sorts of really small venues, big venues. You have been doing this stand-up comedy thing pretty much most of my adult life.
It's you. Yeah. I don't know how old you are, but yes.
I'm 58.
You're 58, yes.
Yeah,
and I've been doing it your whole adult life.
I think what's really fascinating about the work that you do, and you're the first comedian we've ever had on the show, and we wanted to really dive into the craft and try to understand it. You're very funny, and we're going to have a lot of links that people, when they're watching this podcast, will be able to go to check out some of your acts over the years, some really fun stuff. I'm always curious. Like, I want to just jump right into the most obvious question. Is it hard to be funny? And how do you know you're funny? Do you think you're funny?
I think I'm okay funny. Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Thank you.
But how do you know?
You get a sense, I think, when you're young. You get a sense of that you can do that you can make people laugh. I don't know when the first time it happened, but I think it's when you're very young you get a sense that that's like a powerful thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
And so if you can do it, if you lean that way, then you just find yourself going that way more and more.
Do you remember it from an early age? You know that iconic story about Jim Carrey, who had his teacher who at the end of class would let him stand up for 5 minutes if he behaved himself.
That's right. Yeah.
And he started to feel that, the glow of the audience and the laughter, and that's kind of how he knew he wanted to go do it. Was it like that for you? When did you decide it was a viable day on career day for you?
I just always thought being funny was so important as a kid. I just thought it was so important, and everybody that I liked was funny, and everybody that I felt any kind of affection towards was funny, and so that just became a trait that I really I hoped that I had, and also that I tried to develop actively, because it's something that I saw in other people and appreciated a lot.
You've won a lot of neat things, but the Yuck Yucks Great Canadian Comedy Award, am I getting that right?
Yeah, it was a competition.
That's a hell of a great thing. There's some validation there to have won that, but you've also got a reputation around town for also being a great writer. Is the writing a part of the work? Do you do it for other people? How do you distinguish the stuff you want to explore and develop or write for other people versus use as your own material?
Oh, that's a good question. Good question. You're good at this.
Thanks, Graham.
I write a lot of different types of stuff. I write some stuff for television. I write some stuff for radio. I punch up other people's stuff, and then I write the stand-up. So it's all in the same part of your brain, but in sub-compartments.
Yeah.
So the stand-up stuff is just stuff that happens every day.
It feels like it's we talk to a student. We've got a great writing for film, television, and actually in video games here at VFS. It's a great program. Comedy writing is a tricky one. At just about anywhere, there's a lot of people who see that the third rail. It's a tricky one to teach.
Yeah.
I don't know if it even can be taught. I'm curious if you think there is a way to teach comedy writing, or if it's kind of a bit in your DNA. What are you on that one?
I think it's like anything else. You have to, even teaching film stuff or animation stuff, you have to have some want to do it. And I think that usually springs from somebody saying, hey, you're good at that. So I think it all kind of plays backwards, is like you're interested in it, somebody sees that you're good at it, they encourage you to do it, and then you kind of seek out an education to flesh it out. So I think you can teach a lot of stuff, but I think you already have to be in the mode before you ever get to that. Like nobody who has never played around with animation is going to come to an animation school.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
You would hope.
Yeah.
You would hope.
You would hope.
You really would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just-
like you
just
would
like
already know that you were kind of good at it before you
I
went
think
to
so.
that next level, you know?
being in the mode, as you say, a lot of great albums have been written while people are high on drugs or inebriated or what have you, and the like. Comedy tends to have this reputation of by association in that world. Can you wake up on a Tuesday morning at 9:30 and start thinking about a routine or a bit and write, or do you need to be in a zone, or do you need to be in a different kind of headspace? What are your tricks to get there? Like, can you be funny on command?
I don't know if I can be funny on command. I mean, I hope you're never in a situation where somebody's commanding it.
But don't people do that too? They come up there like, "Hey, Graham, this is my friend Graham. He's a stand-up comedian. Say something funny."
Yeah, and then
You
I
love
don't want
that,
to.
right?
I don't want to talk to that person.
You love that, I'm sure. Tell me a joke right now.
But like as far as the Headspace thing goes, there's some comics that they wake up at 9 o'clock and it's like a day job for them. They sit at the computer and they just start writing about a topic until they strike gold. Other people, you just kind of have to just go out and live your life and make sure you have a notebook with you at all times. And it's as different as the person. It really like there are different schools of thought on how to write.
And are you saying figuratively or literally? There's a notebook you carry. Is that the trick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like literally.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll share a page of it, and then while you're talking, I'll flash to it so people might be able to see it.
Well, it's just on my phone right now because I left the notebook
right.
at home. But yeah,
but would it make like what? Do you have your own shorthand that Graham gets? Do you like what's in your opinion? Maybe this is what I'm trying to ask. How is a good joke constructed in your point of view? And again, when I watch your stand-up, it does not appear accidental. It appears certainly unrehearsed in a good way. Good. Right? Like it feels natural, but it doesn't feel like you are just winging it. There's some of your observations, I think, he had to have put some thought to that routine and the transitions. I'm assuming that's true, or do you ever just freewheel it like that? Yeah,
I like to go, my personal way of doing it is I like to go on stage with an idea, and then the pressure cooker situation of being on stage in front of an audience forces my brain to make the connections and figure out the punchline a lot faster than if I was just sitting in a room doing it by myself. So getting up on stage is a big part of the writing process for me. Yeah. But other people, by the time they hit the stage, the joke is fully written, and that's the way it's going to be, and they'll adjust it based on response, but really they've written the joke, and that's the way it is all the way down the line. But for me, it's I have an idea, and I have an idea where I want it to go. But if the audience isn't interested in that direction, I'll go where they're interesed.
Right, and you feed off, I guess, where the laughs or they take you and you to keep going. And
I think like Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld said that a good comedy act is like a conversation with the audience. So you're putting something out and you're getting something back from them, and that kind of that lets you know you're going in the right direction. So if you say something, you get nothing back, you're going in the wrong direction. You've said, it's not that you've done something wrong, but it's just you haven't got the audience kind of responding to you, and so you can't build. If the audience doesn't respond to you, you can't build to that next level. So you have to figure out level one.
Gotcha.
And then, once you get that response, then see, maybe I push it a little further, see if I get a response off of that. Maybe I take it this way, take it that way, and see if the audience sticks with you. And then
it becomes they hold your hand through that where you're going to focus or take it longer. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, and they'll be an audience will be 100% honest, because they don't owe you to laugh or to say that's good. They don't know you. They want you to do well, but they have no obligation to make you do well.
What a career. I mean, like next to acting, I can't think of any job where you are daily or nightly, as it were, faced with the potential for absolute failure. Like, and the balls it takes to get up there and do it. I've seen people bomb who I know are funny.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm always empathetic, thinking, wow, it's not an easy gig. Surely there are easier career paths. Have you ever envisioned doing anything else, or is this is what Graham has got to do?
I've envisioned other things for sure. Yeah, because it's not always going well. So you envision yourself doing other stuff. You know?
Yeah.
But I don't. For me, it's not hard to get up in front of people and do it. It's like, to me, a hard job is a coal miner. Like that to me is a hard job.
Yeah.
Like somebody who's got to go and drill concrete at 6 a.m. That's a hard job. Getting up on stage in front of people is, to me, is the easiest thing in the world.
I'm talking to Graham Clark, a comedian, one of Canada's best. And if you haven't heard of him, you just haven't heard of him yet, I'm encouraging you to push pause on this audio or video podcast. Go to any of the links we put below here and watch some of Graham's stand-up before you come back to the rest of this interview, because I really want people to appreciate your style and your comedy. It's very personal for lots of people. We all have taste, right? Just like fashion and food. Yeah. But I do find a lot of people around town, when I ask who they like or who they've seen, your name always comes up across a whole mix of interesting people, old and young.
Oh, that's really nice to hear.
Yeah, I would think you'd be really happy about that. When in comedy, Graham, I want to ask you, this is something I was really curious for your perspective on. There's been a lot made of, especially in the last few years, there was a great documentary that had come out a short while ago that was talking about the history of anti-Semitism and the Holocaust and comedy, and how the Jewish culture has always sort of reached to comedy to help, through that kind of hardship and those issues and the pain, and how it's important to laugh at ourselves and where are the boundaries of taste and good jokes and good humor. And I wondered if in your you've been doing this for over 15 years, right? I mean, probably close to 20 years now.
Coming up.
You certainly have probably brushed up against issues and ideas. Once upon a time, you couldn't even think about making a joke that had AIDS in it, and now you can go there. What's the going rate on when will hashtag Me Too ever be funny? Or is it about just waiting until it's history, or is there something that, when do you decide when to go up to close to the line and when do you pull away?
For me, it's, again, the audience gets a big say in it. So if you can take any controversial kind of bit of news or something that's going on in society, if you think you've got a good, clever twist on it, the audience will let you know, yes, you do, or no, you don't.
Right.
And so, I don't think anything is off limits, but you have to be very clever. And, the people who are clever, they get away with it. And you kind of say, how does so-and-so get away with it? Somebody like Anthony Jeselnik is somebody who routinely says just some of the most awful things, and he gets a whole breadth of people laughing.
find him very funny.
He's very funny.
Yeah.
But he is very clever.
Yeah.
He's incredibly clever. And so he doesn't take the most obvious punchline. He's figured out.
He walks you around the long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's figured out the context.
Thoughts and Prayers, I think, is maybe one of the 10 best of the decade.
Yeah. And he's able to do it. He's even said he's able to do it because of the culture that exists now, not in spite of it. If the kind of culture, the sensitivities of the day didn't exist, there is no Anthony Jeselnik.
Right.
He knows that. And so he knows exactly the notes to hit. He's very smart. And like I say, if you're going to try and wrestle with something very controversial, it had better be clever. Don't take the lazy route, because the audience will hand you your ass for that.
I know you've got a great Just for Laughs quiz show. You're doing a big event coming up on February 22nd, I believe. Mm-hmm. We'll post this, but for information for people there. But if that date has passed and you are watching this, I want to give you a quick quiz back and forth here now. Tell me quick if it's funny, not funny, or not funny yet.
Okay.
Let me throw a couple at you here.
Sure.
I want to see where the lines are. Coronavirus.
That could be funny. In the right hands, could be funny.
Sure.
Yeah.
Harvey Weinstein trial.
I think some people have already made some pretty good jokes about the Harvey Weinstein thing, about himself.
Sure.
And I think, yeah, I've seen some comedians have some success with it. So I think, yes, I think that's
good.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is really helpful. Justin Trudeau's beard.
Definitely out of the gates. It was ready to, because
How did his PR people not think this was going to be a punchline?
the thing that's funny to me is because there's like this ongoing thing online that Justin Trudeau's dad is actually Fidel Castro. So there's,
I've heard this.
It's wild to have that kind of in the background and then grow a beard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like if he showed up in military fatigues, it would be.
Someone photoshopped that immediately.
Yeah,
I need to
yeah.
see the side by side.
That was my reaction when I saw him with a beard. I was like, well, you're really courting this now.
They really are.
Yeah.
Pay equity in the workplace. Women not getting equal pay to men.
I think, especially for women comics, this is ripe territory to dig into. Absolutely.
How do they do, by the way, in the comedy world? Is there what's the pay parity? Is there any? What's the gender gap, if at all?
I assume that it's the same problem in comedy that it is in every other business. But
you have not championed that cause and asked.
Well, the difference is it's not pay scale. It's about bookings.
Right.
More than anything. So I know for sure, I've talked to many women comics that wouldn't get booked at clubs that their peers who are men would get booked at. So I know that it exists, but everything's so fragmented in the business. There's no HR department. There's no president of comedy to talk to. So kind of club by club, absolutely. There's that kind of stuff is going on all the time.
Michael Jackson, the DaveChapelle, you saw the Netflix special, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Too soon where he went. What was your take on his whole position on the allegations of Michael Jackson and the alleged victims that called him out?
I mean, people.
Did you laugh?
That wasn't my favorite part of his special. I liked that special a lot.
Yeah.
And Dave Chappelle, again, very clever.
Funny guy.
And he's also a guy who he knows that he's provoked. He knows exactly what he's doing. He grins when he does it on stage. He knows when he brings up the Michael Jackson documentary, he knows that gets people's back up. He knows it. That's what he's doing. He's doing it on purpose to create an atmosphere where when he delivers that punchline, the release is so much bigger than just somebody talking about, their favorite type of coffee. You know what I mean? Like he's building up a suspense and then...
Totally.
Yeah. And he's a master at it. So, I know what he's doing the whole time he's doing it. And people that get upset, I'm like, don't you see that he is on purpose trying to rankle you.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah, that's what he's up to. He's he reminds me of Bugs Bunny.
And he's so good at it.
Yeah, he's so good at it. But he's even said that he takes inspiration from Bugs Bunny, and I'm like, he is Bugs Bunny to me. Aren't I a stinker? I've done this on purpose.
And there's to your point, there's no president of comedy. No. I think that's a great point. But there is a opinion master general, because at a certain point, I mean, Louis C.K. is still struggling to book gigs within North America.
He's not struggling. He's doing just fine.
Is he doing okay?
He's doing just fine.
I had read he was in Europe and he was well received there, but he made a joke about his struggles because of all that. So do you think that has he weathered that? Like the opinion master general of the media, at a certain point, do they to you when you're live in the crowd, that they take you down the path and you know where you can take them and where you can't. Mm-hmm. But when does a certain will Louis have redemption in your eyes? I mean, what a brilliant writer. Can he rebound from that?
I don't think that he's sought any kind of redemption. He hasn't. He made kind of a half apology for what he did, and he hasn't sought any kind of redemption beyond that. So I don't know that there's any redemption due.
Sure.
If you're not seeking it. But he'll be fine.
He of course had that that comedy, that he almost became, to a certain point, I think if things had not been interrupted as they were, he probably would be up there with some fairly compelling actors who have transitioned, like Sandler. He's doing some pretty good acting for a comedian. Why aren't you an actor? Do you ever think of yourself as an actor?
Not at all.
Why?
I don't.
You'd be good at it.
I don't think I would be good at it. I've tried it.
I'm not the first person to say this either. What do you tell people when they ask you?
I've tried it, and I'm not. I'm very convincing with my own material.
Yeah.
But interpreting other people's words is difficult. It's a very specific skill, and so my hat's really off to actors because I can't breathe life into other people's words the way that a good actor can.
When you look at your peers, how many of them over the years have attempted to cross over into that space and maybe even done it successfully? Is it just a perception that eventually a really great comic could be a really great comedic actor, or is that incorrect?
I think that's the perception. I think that if you're funny one way, that you can be funny every other way. But I don't think that's true. I think some of the funniest stand-ups I've ever seen would make miserable actors.
Right.
And some of the kind of middle-of-the-road stand-ups that I've encountered over the year are great actors and hilarious on screen. Or maybe a person is more of a writer, and so they do stand-up, but that's only because that's the only way they could figure to kind of get out there and write jokes. But then you kind of get like, not only are you a good writer, you could write jokes for somebody else because you're such a powerful writer, but maybe you're not a born performer. So it kind of runs the gamut.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't interest you at all. Do you talk to comedians who are thinking, when they want your advice, one's starting up now, like you're officially probably in I can give advice territory.
I could. I try not to, but I could. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you say when you encounter someone that's thinking of wanting to break in and they want some tips, or they're thinking of making this the ultimate path? What's your response? Do you talk them into it? What are the cautionary tales you would ever give, if any?
Of stand-up or comedy in general?
Yeah, stand-up.
I think if you are compelled to do it, for whatever reason, then you owe yourself to try it. And if you really get something out of it, keep doing it. And then if at any point you feel like I'm not getting that same juice out of it, quit, because it is so hard to keep going.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't have that constant kind of fuel to do it, then don't do it. That's also fine. It's fine to do it. It's fine to not do it. But if you feel that need, I really need to try it out and see if it is actually the thing that you hoped it would be. When
you're writing new material, you're working on a bit and you're getting ready for it, do you have a comedic board of advisors you bounce things off? Do you keep it really locked up and you just let the audience be the test group? How do you prepare before you release new material? What's your approach?
Like I say, I like to get up on stage. I like to try it in front of different types of audiences.
You don't call a buddy over and say, run it through in the living room lounge first?
No, but I know a lot of comics that do.
Yeah.
And I know the backstage at a comedy show is great because you can go up to another comedian and go, have you heard this before? Or do you think this is funnier if I say it this way or that way? And they'll give you that feedback. That's kind of just kind of a courtesy that every comedian pays to every other comedian is let me bounce this idea off of you.
Right.
And, you don't have to laugh because you kind of, it's like you know all the tricks, but you can say that's funny. You hear that a lot. You hear that a lot backstage with comedians, them saying that's funny.
And is it funny? Like, I would think that when you are backstage and somebody's like, yeah, that's funny, I guess it's just trust. No one's back there humoring you. I would find that incredibly nerve-wracking when you're even about to go on and you go, here, I'm going to do this bit on Korean barbecue. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, but I don't think a comedian will ever say that's funny if it's not. They'll say, what about this? So
I guess the culture then is incredibly friendly, supportive? Do you find when you're on the road and you're traveling and you're doing it, what's that culture like with other comedians? Do you all know each other? Is it do you look ahead at the booking to see who's there and watch their stuff? What's it like? I picture it very casual from what I've seen. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and you don't see everybody all the time because it's all spread out.
Right.
So you'll run into somebody, like this past weekend I did a gig with a guy I hadn't seen for 6 years, I think.
Yeah.
And you just kind of pick up where you left off. You know all the same people. You've been through the same experiences. You've all done the same gigs. And so there's this kind of instant repartee between comics. But like I say, you don't see them all the time because they're on this gig, you're on that gig. But when you come across them, yeah, it's.
Have you got a booking agent? You must work with someone that for over years.
No, I basically do it all myself.
Why don't you go that more booking agent route like some? Is that intentional? Because you've done HBO, you've done Just for Laughs, you've done Yuck Yuck. You've got a really great career there. Is that just your style? Is that your MO? Do you recommend that?
It's just, you know what? It's more living in Canada than anything. There's not a ton of in any level of show business in Canada. There's just not a ton of it. So you kind of have to figure out your own way into and around it because you're in Canada. It's a different. It's not like America or Britain or any other kind of big entertainment market. Canada is its own weird kind of place.
Talking about funny with Graham Clark, stand-up comedian, all around hilarious guy. Do you watch funny stuff? Talk to me about what you think is funny, who you think is funny right now. TV, stand-up, any of it. Who do you like? Who do you not like?
The guy that I see regularly clips of is a guy from the States named Kyle Dunnigan.
Kyle Dunnigan.
And he just like anything in comedy, something about the way he crafts a joke gets me every time. He's just so funny and so different.
If we could link to one comedian you want us to check out that you think is funny, you'd put his name up there?
I would put his name up there, yeah. Just because every time I watch him, I laugh like a crazy person. So,
Larry David. You find Larry David funny?
Larry David's very funny.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, I love it.
Like all that?
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy, still funny?
Eddie Murphy was before kind of my time. Like he was always a guy that I took it from people at face value that he was funny. But all of this SNL,
I didn't think it was that funny, this Saturday Night Live when he came back. Did you watch it?
No, I didn't watch it.
It felt like they were just rehashing skits he did 35 years ago.
Sure.
And I don't know. I felt like it's like you say that the audience won't laugh if they don't want to. I would disagree with that. I've been to places where you almost feel compelled to laugh, like you have to laugh.
Right.
Like you're almost like, if I don't, this poor guy is not going to make it, right?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Like, well, I think it's because everybody is so happy to see him back. You know, he's somebody that...
You want him to be funny.
You want him to be funny, and SNL was trying to get Eddie Murphy back for decades, and he kind of was not interested, and he went back, and I just think people were so stoked that... You know, they're laughing. They're having a great time. You can convince yourself you're having a great time, especially if you paid a lot of money to go see a thing or whatever.
For sure.
You know, you can really trick yourself into that. So if it wasn't good, I didn't see it. But
I didn't think so.
Yeah, then, you know, it might have been a lot of people who were just like, I'm glad to see this guy here.
I think talking comedy with you right now, what did my wife and I just... We found it randomly. It was Jeff Ross.
Yeah.
Roasts policemen.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see this? Are you familiar with this? Have you heard
No,
of it?
I've seen him do work at like a prison, and he did also
yes, it was
at
like
the border.
That. Yeah, so this was, I think this is like Jeff Ross goes through all the different.
Yeah.
He did a room of cops, like Boston cops. I think it was Boston cops. Good God.
Yeah.
The ball's on him. I mean, Roastmaster General and all that.
Yeah.
But to go into a room full of cops and really hand it to cops.
Yeah.
And it was funny. And he broke them. He got through. He made them laugh. He's very funny. Is the roast is its own style of comedy.
Absolutely
You talk about all the genres, I think with the exception of Carrot Top, there's probably not a lot of prop comics left. But it's out there.
Which is weird to me because Carrot Top's so successful. Why wouldn't there be 10 Carrot Tops? Do you know what I mean? Like Carrot Top has had nothing but success his whole career.
Yeah, he still sells out the Luxor like nightly. Yeah.
And so why aren't there more?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I've never understood that.
Gallagher and then Carrot Top.
And Carrot Top and then no other.
Yeah, that is weird.
It's weird.
But do you think he's funny?
He's never been my thing,
but he sells it out, right?
He does, absolutely.
Yeah,
and my friend has seen a show and said it's the most mind-blowing live show he's ever seen. So you gotta.
I mean, I've seen it on YouTube. I get it.
Yeah,
it's clever and he does funny, but
and it's
I didn't want to go. If someone gave me tickets, I probably wouldn't go.
I would definitely go.
Yeah,
yeah.
I would go to an after party with him.
Sure.
I would like to do that.
Yeah. No, I would go see Carrot Top show. Absolutely.
I find that the one that really I struggle with, and I'm glad it's over, and I could never figure it out, was The Big Bang Theory.
Oh yeah,
that show, like winning Emmys, and if I get hateful comments now because I'm about to trash that show, I found the sitcom formula of comedy writing extremely not funny, and I struggled with why. I was so disconnected from clearly millions of people that found it hilarious.
Yeah.
I just looked at it, and then the one I watched yesterday, because it came up in my Netflix feed, was that stupid one with Ashton Kutcher. It's his sitcom about a ranch, and he has it with...
The Ranch, I think.
The Ranch, yeah. And it feels the same way. It is just like set up for the joke, punchline, here it comes, and then you when you don't know if it's a live audience or a laugh track, it's a problem.
Yeah,
and then on the other extreme end, you've got shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm, or you've got all these other sort of really really ballsy new comedy shows that are all in a whole different vein. Why is the sitcom? What's wrong with people? Does it deserve the same respect as all the others? Why is that funny to people?
I don't necessarily know why it's funny to people, but I think like any show that you watch a lot of, there's a level of comfort to watching it. So I think whether or not it's funny is almost besides the point. Are you comfortable watching?
Like if you watch old Three Stooges,
sure.
Do you think that's funny?
I'm not the biggest Three Stooges fan, but I watch old Marx Brothers movies, and I think those are hilarious.
Like how hilarious? Like are you like losing it, or are you like that's funny?
They're funny. Like the Marx Brothers are like properly funny. Like
you laugh out loud for you.
Yeah, laugh out loud. Yeah.
You're more sophisticated than me. I don't laugh out. I don't laugh out loud to the Marx Brothers. I Love Lucy. I don't think it's that funny. And I get it was a generation.
Yeah, it was a generation.
But there is. Then I could go back to.
But Lucille Ball is very funny. Like
Maybe.
I've seen her on roasts, and I've seen her.
Oh yeah, sure.
She's funny.
Yeah. But that's like back when they were doing the Dean Martin roasts. Or whatever.
Even before that, the Friars Club roast.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Those are funny when you get them out of that space. But there is something about the joke, the comedy. I think there has to almost be an unrehearsed or there's an art to it. I'm terribly explaining it, but I know you get what I mean.
But and comedy, my friend Cliff Nestroff wrote a book called The Comedians, and one of the things that he points out in it is that comedy is generational. So what's funny to your kind of generation is not necessarily funny to the next generation. And what's funny to them may not be funny to you. And so comedy does have a way of being very generational. Like, I don't expect a kid now to get why I thought Seinfeld was funny, the TV show Seinfeld. I wouldn't think, if I showed that to a kid, I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, this is not funny.
I know, I get your point. My 11-year-old Fox, he loves John Mulaney.
Sure.
He finds John Mulaney very, very funny.
Sure.
And like he had just done that kids thing on Netflix,
Yeah.
like long before that came out.
Yeah.
Like was into John Mulaney stand-up, and my wife and I had exposed him to a lot of HBO type stuff.
Sure.
That was funny, and he got it. I think kids can be trained to have an appreciation for good comedy.
I don't disagree.
If I was to go back and do reruns of The Fresh Prince, he's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's that funny.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like maybe the audience is getting more sophisticated. In your view, is there more options in front of us? Like when you go through Netflix and you see all the stand-up comedians that you can be served up, from Joe Coy to Bill Burr and all around, Todd Glass, all these crazy names. Is it just now we are playing to a personality that we resonate with, or do you think that each of them represents a new emerging discipline or genre of comedy in your view?
I just think what you're going to see is the next generation, like people who are your son's age.
Yeah.
They're going to have this bizarro, like completely unpredictable sense of humor because they've been exposed to all this stand-up and they've been exposed to all of the YouTube stuff and they follow people on TikTok and they understand memes and that they're going to be they're kind of on a level that I can't even appreciate because I'm too old. I'm too old to understand. But, they understand the kind of like meta jokes that are in The Simpsons and they've like turned them into memes and turned those memes into other memes that they understand. They have like reference points that are 4 or 5 generations removed from the actual reference itself.
Right.
And so their sense of humor, their comedy is going to be like this mutant form of comedy that like you and I and everybody our age is going to eventually say, I just don't get it.
Right.
And you won't because the kids will have figured out some weird form of comedy.
It's like music. I always thought I was really eclectic and open-minded to music.
Sure.
I pride myself on it. In fact, I realized I don't even like Lil Uzi, and I don't understand.
Sure.
Like what's his name? Juice WRLD, that guy died.
Yeah.
I'm like, who? I don't really know anything that Juice WRLD.
And that's fine.
But I feel like if I was truly open-minded to it, I would have gone to explore it, and maybe I should explore that new comedy, but I just can't bring myself, and I feel like that's the curse of every generation. We tell ourselves we're not open to it, and I wonder if I'm missing all this great music or comedy, as it were, in this case, right? Like
you will be missing stuff that's really great, but you'll have to, just like any other search for something great, you're going to have to go through a lot of really bad stuff to get to that great kind of nugget that you
Here's my comedy tip that I'm going to give to you. When you're on Netflix, if you want to know if it's a good special, when you hover over the thing to play it, and if you wait a minute, then it kicks into the pre-roll, and it does a little thing. If they show one joke, it's going to be a good comedy special.
Oh, that's a good tip.
If it is multiple jokes, like they cut through and barely finish it, and they try to show you 4 different laugh lines, it's going to be bad.
Right, because they don't have enough trust in the joke to just let it stand on its own.
Try that at home and let me know if this rule rings true to you, because
that's good.
My wife and I figured out they're hoping you'll win on one of these jokes.
Yeah.
Or we're going to gamble it all on this one thing that Bill Burr says.
Yeah.
We think you're going to be hooked.
Yeah, and it's
Ken Jeong.
Yeah, one of my favorite late night sets that I've seen in recent years. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he did his entire set about why is everybody so down on Guy Fieri. And it was his whole set was what did he do that's so wrong? And he makes this beautiful argument about why Guy Fieri has never done anything wrong. If anything, he's done a lot of things very right.
Very successful guy.
Very successful guy. Helps small businesses.
Sure.
Has been kind of pulled himself up out of obscurity and it was just, but that his whole set was just about that. And it's one of the most memorable late night sets I've ever seen. So having that confidence, like you say, in the one joke is everything.
That's interesting too, because I wondered, as you're working out material on stage, talking comedy tips here with Graham Clark, do you kind of practice it out on the audience? and you get a feel for where they laugh. Maybe you can play with the setup or whatever a little bit more. How many nights in a row, or how many bookings will you keep working on the joke before you go, this thing's not gonna land?
I always stuck with, there was a comedian named Stephen Wright.
Yeah.
Stephen Wright said, if it's funny 3 times, it's always funny. If it's not funny 3 times, it's never funny. So 3 seems to be the magic number. If it works 2 out of the 3, you can keep going. But if it stinks 3 times, let it go. Don't throw it away, because that tag, that punchline, that premise, you'll use it somewhere else. That's the great thing about comedy, is it's a real recycler's market.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Dane Cook for a minute.
Sure.
Dane Cook burst onto the scene like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're talking like went from Comedy Cellar to Madison Square Gardens, 2 nights of bookings, like Kevin Hart status within months. This album went huge, his first one. We see that sometimes in comedy. An album can all of a sudden like just launch you into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
And then he did a follow-up, and it was big. And then a third, and then nothing, gone.
Right.
What's your take on that? Is there always the, assuming no personal stuff that we're not aware of, is there risk of burnout in comedy? Like, is the need for fuel to be funny? Is it a commodity that is in short supply? Like, why do you think something like that happens? And how does somebody go that big and they don't stay up there? That's really, and barely see him now doing clubs.
Well, he's doing fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dane Cook's doing fine.
Yeah.
He, like any comedian, there's this kind of weird thing that happens, is your first album is the result of, 10 to 12 years of you doing stand-up.
Of course. Yeah.
And then the second album is the result of maybe 2 years. And the third album, if you're hot, you got to get those albums out. There are some comics that are putting out a special or an album every 2 years. That's a crazy pace, because when you think about that first album taking a decade to shave down the sharp edges and figure out exactly where the gold was in every joke, you do get better at it over time, but not to that acceleration.
Sure.
So, I would argue any comedian has that same kind of problem, is if you hit with that first special or album or whatever, the second one is going to be, they're going to want it a lot faster.
But I think, to your point, he was. My wife and I saw him in L.A. I don't know, 2-3 years ago at a club. Was sort of a surprise guest. Sure. It was great. It was as funny as ever. And I'm thinking, I always liked him. I always found him very funny, and I wondered why all of a sudden it seemed. I don't have any empirical data for this beyond.
Sure.
He's not. I didn't see him at Madison Square Garden.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And something happened there. I wonder, like, the audience can be really fickle with their comedians, which surprised me, or the perception of that. And I wonder if you do you engage a lot with your fans before or after shows? What's your social media like with your fans? There's a lot of people that want to come up and touch you and tell you must feel the love of that after a show. Does it translate over time? And they've been watching you for years like that?
Yeah, I like hanging out after a show and saying hi to people if they wanna do so. If they don't, that's fine too.
You're not offended?
Not at all. No way. We've had our transaction.
It's not Comic-Con. You don't have to sign anything.
Yeah. And I'm not. There's a lot of comedians that sell albums after shows or sell T-shirts or whatever, and I've never done that. So
why not?
I just laziness, I guess, is probably the answer to that.
Fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. I would buy your clothing.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, maybe I'll print off a one only shirt for you.
Please do it. I will wear it on this show. It'll be amazing. Yeah.
But with in regards to Dane Cook, he like I say, he belonged to a generation of young kids that had money to spend to go see a guy at Madison Square Gardens.
Right.
Those people are all now adults that have kids and would have to get a babysitter to go see Dane Cook. And so he's not playing the big arenas because you need fans that have money and the ability to go see you at.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's the same with like Kevin Hart. He's got like very young fans. As those fans age, they'll be like, I don't know, I got to get a babysitter and I got to drive down and we can't drink and like
speaking of Kevin Hart, you remember the controversy about the old tweets he did or whatever, and he was going to host the Oscars and he didn't. Did you ever go back on your old material as a comedian and go, that's not funny anymore, or whether it was like wrong to say it or just generally you don't find it funny? Do you go back and look at the old work or ever?
Yeah, I look at it. I don't.
Do you read the comments?
Oh God, no.
Okay.
You can't.
No,
there's no.
I'm not even gonna read them for this one.
Yeah, no, there's no anything to be gained in the comments.
I asked Dylan not to tell me. They are terrible already, dude. We don't read them.
Yeah, and I get it because it's the satisfying thing of like. Being at the back of the classroom and nobody can tell that it was you that made that comment.
Right.
So I get it. I get why the comment section is the comment section, but don't spend any time in the comment section. It's bad.
Do you think you're improving?
I hope so. I better be because otherwise, you can't. Level out.
I don't think you are, but I don't. but I don't mean it like you're getting worse. I mean it like I've watched you for over 10 years, and I find you're consistent. You have a style that I know I'm going to get when I go see you.
Right.
You're not all of a sudden doing like roasts of people. You're not all of a sudden a cruel asshole comedian pointing out people in the crowd that are handicapped or something.
Sure.
Like I know if I go see Graham Clark, it's going to be a type of comedy that I find funny. So in that sense, maybe what I'm saying is it's not that you're not improving.
Good.
It's that you're not evolving. I don't know. Like does it and do you are you aware of that? Do you find your colleagues do that? Or is it important to stick to? Do you even do it consciously at all? Not evolve.
Well, it's the thing is like in the past, I would say 5 or 6 years, I've gone to a lot of Fringe festivals, and so I've done a lot of one-man shows.
Yeah,
and that was in order to kind of push myself into, can I write a show that has a beginning, middle, and end? Can I have a show that has some sort of emotion to it? Can I do a show where it's not where I'm not a slave to the punchline every 30 seconds or so, which is very much what's expected in a comedy club, but at a one-man show in the Fringe world, you can kind of broaden that out a lot. So I've done that in the last kind of 5 or 6 years to see, just for myself, can I do that? And the answer, I think, was yes.
Right, yeah.
And I tried to do as many different types of comedy as I can. So I do the stand-up, and then I do the podcast, and then I also host a show, and I do this game show, this live game show, and I also have a show where I riff on old wrestling clips, and so I try to do as many different types of comedy.
We're going to link to all that on this so people can find your stuff.
Sure.
It's really funny. Do you if it was on my bucket list, I wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to try stand-up comedy.
Sure.
Before I die. Now what?
You got to have at least 5 minutes. Even if it's just 5 minutes of you.
So write a 5-minute monologue.
Yeah.
About lots of stuff, or stick to Korean barbecue.
Well, if you
don't know
brought
why.
up Korean barbecue a couple times, so I feel like you've got it on the mind.
I did. I haven't eaten today.
But if write what you think is funny, that will never go
done.
wrong.
Now what?
So then you got to book yourself a spot.
Where?
You go to either an open mic.
Open mic.
And you
typical
sign
Canadian city or USA probably has one. Yeah.
They probably have many.
Okay.
Yeah. And usually the thing is you have to show up and sign up.
Yep.
And then you do your set, and if you liked it, if it went well, you do that again, and you just keep doing it.
Bucket list thing done.
That's right.
It's that simple, eh?
It's just that easy. Yeah.
How many comics do you come across that are doing that for their first time? Are you ever around someone?
Yeah. There's always
So it's a
new
thriving
comedians.
industry, eh?
Yeah, there's always new comedians.
That's great.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know why there's so many people that want to do it, but there's more comedy that exists now than ever before.
Graham, you're a really, really funny guy. I have loved your comedy forever, and we have never had a stand-up comedian come on the show before. So you're breaking new ground for us, and I really appreciate you sharing the insights and the background. Will you come on another time and talk to us and let us know how things are going?
Sure. Yeah.
Graham Clark, everybody, what a great comedian. There's so much. We're going to jam-pack the comments of this podcast there. You can check out some great links and some stuff that Graham has mentioned. I won't even try to list all the different shows and things he's doing, but his podcast is hilarious. I just listened to your most recent one about 3 days ago, and it's always on our place, and you're one of the biggest ones here in Vancouver. Everybody loves it. So tip of the hat to you. I hope
Thank you very
if we can
much.
have any of your success, we know we're doing something right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Graham Clark.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime, man.
Yeah.
And that's all she wrote.
All right. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Nice.